everyone, and welcome to this week's What's for Dinner. This week I'm sharing 3 recipes that we tried out on our new Traeger. Let's get into it. So the first meal I'm sharing is going to be steak, veggies, and baked potatoes. So here I've got a bowl with mushrooms, carrots, and asparagus in it that I seasoned with some olive oil, garlic powder, and some pre-made vegetable seasoning. I am going to stick these on the grill with our steaks. The potatoes, I did start them earlier in the day, so I just put them in my regular oven and then I'm going to let them finish on the grill. Otherwise they take about an hour on there and I just didn't have the time for that this day. Here's our steak that we seasoned with garlic powder, as well as some chimichurri seasoning, which is just a pre-made mix that I had. Here's everything out on the grill cooking. I also have some dog treats cooking on there for Guinness. And then here's our plate. So we're going to start with that baked potato, and I'm going to make loaded baked potatoes, so I'm just popping it open. You can see how soft and delicious those are. The skin on these were super crispy and so good. I always put a little bit of butter, some salt, pepper. Ryan likes sour cream and bacon and chives on his, so that's what I did for him. I actually put salsa on mine. That's my favorite. And then I just serve up the steak on the side with a little bit of barbecue sauce, even though it didn't even need it because it had so much flavor. And then a good serving of those vegetables. So the next meal I'm making is a classic bangers and mash. I have some honey garlic venison sausages out on the grill cooking, and now I'm just going to make some red skin mashed potatoes. So I'm just cutting up my potatoes into small dices and putting them into a pot with cold water that we're going to boil up until they're fork tender. And then once my potatoes are cooked, I put them into my stand mixer with the whisk attachment, and I just give those a quick whisk to break down everything as much as I can, and I make sure that I lift it up after and take out any of the big chunks that are stuck in the whisk. You can also use your paddle attachment to start. And then the pot that I made the potatoes in, I turn the burner off, but I put my butter and my cream or milk in there along with my seasonings so that I'm not adding anything cold into my potatoes. I just find it comes out much creamier that way. Now my seasonings change all the time for my potatoes, but my go-to is usually salt, pepper, and a little bit of garlic powder, which is what I did this day. I also added a little bit of cream cheese. This is just plain original Philadelphia cream cheese, just to add a bit of creaminess. And then on the side with this one, I made peas, just regular frozen green peas that I cooked in some boiling water, and then put butter and salt and pepper on them, and then I made a good amount of gravy, and that gets poured all over everything. Now this next meal is brisket, mac and cheese, and baked beans. This is our huge brisket that we just seasoned with the Traeger beef rub. We let this sit for 30 minutes before we put it out on the grill. And then here we're going to start making our baked beans. Now I do have a recipe for homemade baked beans. Now this is just canned beans that I'm going to amp up with some seasonings. So we're starting there with a little bit of packed brown sugar, some Worcester sauce, and our choice of barbecue sauce, which was a honey smoked oak barbecue sauce. I'm just kind of eyeballing everything, but I will leave the recipe that I based it on down below. We're putting in some prepared mustard there, as well as some apple cider vinegar. I'm going to give that a quick mix, and then I add 2 cans of baked beans to this. So I just used great value beans with the pork and molasses, and then I chopped up an onion, a yellow pepper, and about 4 slices of bacon, and I just cook those up on the side, and I add that all in together, and then we're going to put that in a foil. I have it in a metal tin with foil around the bottom because I'm going to put this out on the grill and let it cook. I did end up finishing it in the oven just because the brisket was cooking so low and I wanted the beans to cook a little bit higher. My mac and cheese just with some melted butter that I'm adding flour to. Now for my mac and cheese it always kind of changes, but I usually just eyeball everything. So I just have a bit of butter here. I'm adding about an equal amount of flour, and I'm just kind of mixing that on a medium-low heat until it starts to form a paste-like material. I do add more flour if needed, which I did this day. So once that is to the consistency that I like for mine, I add my seasonings right to the roux. So I added salt, pepper, garlic powder, and some mustard powder, and a little bit of paprika at the end. I do like to add the seasonings to the roux just because I feel like the flavor ends up more incorporated throughout the entire sauce, as well as I can toast those seasonings a little bit just to really bring out their flavor. Now once those seasonings have a few minutes to toast up, I do start to slowly add my cream or milk. So I add a very small amount, whisk that into the roux, sorry. I do end up switching to a whisk in the end. I just find it easier. So once that's really incorporated, I add a little bit more and a little bit more, and then until I get to a consistency, I add a larger amount, and then I let that come to a simmer and thicken. It usually takes about 5 to 8 minutes for that. So now that my cream mixture has really thickened and come to a really nice simmer, I'm going to add a few different types of cheese here. I've got some vintage cheddar cheese, I've got some mozzarella, as well as some marble, which is a medium, which would be equal to about a sharp cheddar. And then I do also add a bit of grated Parmesan cheese, just the powder kind. I really find if you use different types of cheese, it really intensifies that cheesy flavor. A lot of times I will use cream cheese or brie just to give it that extra creaminess, but this definitely had it, and I think that mozzarella really helped with that. And then I just mix that on a low temperature until all that cheese is melted and incorporated in. And then once my macaroni noodles or whatever type of noodles I'm using that day are cooked, I just mix that right into the pot. Now sometimes I bake this with some more cheese and breadcrumbs on top. This day I just left it in the pan with the cheese sauce. I wanted a really creamy mac and cheese, and I did end up adding a little bit of that Traeger beef rub just to kind of incorporate that flavor, and I really think that added something special to it. So delicious. I topped mine with hot sauce, my favorite way. Ryan usually does ketchup, but this one you don't even need to add anything to it. It's got so much flavor. So now our brisket has just come off of the grill. We let it rest for half an hour before we sliced into it. Now this did cook for many hours at a very low temperature. You can see that beautiful smoke ring. This turned out so good. I will try and find a similar recipe or the exact recipe down below. You can see how juicy that meat is. We are going to serve this up with our sides that we made, of course. I just have some toasted buns here with some mayo on them that I'm just going to break up some of that brisket and put it on. Usually I would top it with coleslaw, but I didn't have any this night, and we just really wanted to taste the meat. I did top it with a bit of that barbecue sauce that I used in the baked beans, and then served it up with the baked beans and mac and cheese on the side, and this was so incredibly delicious. We were so full by the end of it. So that is it for this week. I really hope you enjoyed these meals. If you want to see more Traeger barbecue meals, please take a moment and subscribe down below. I share those. Grocery hauls, bake with me's. Give this video a like if you want to see more like this. And I hope you guys all have a great day.